He believed his daughter was blind her entire life. But one ordinary dinner revealed a truth that shattered everything. When a young waitress noticed something strange in the girl's eyes, a secret long buried began to surface. And what they discovered that night changed their lives forever. Was it science, fate, or something far beyond human understanding? Stay till the end, because this story will leave you questioning what seeing truly means. Sparkles. Title: Billionaire thought his daughter was blind until the waitress discovered that. The restaurant glowed with soft amber lights. Laughter and music drifted through the air, polished silver clinking against crystal glass. Mr. Adrian Cole, a billionaire known for his calm authority, sat across from his young daughter, Lily. She held her teddy bear tightly, her pale blue eyes distant, unfocused. He adjusted his cufflinks, glancing around as if the world itself might be watching him. The waiter had just served their meal when Lily's spoon slipped from her hand and clattered on the plate. Adrian sighed softly, the weight of guilt pressing behind his composed expression. He believed his daughter could not see, a condition doctors had declared unchangeable since birth. But tonight, something felt different. The air around him hummed with quiet tension. A young waitress, Mira, approached their table. Her eyes were kind, observant, but there was a spark of curiosity behind them. She noticed Lily's gaze flicker toward the falling spoon. Just for a second, barely noticeable, but real. Mira hesitated. Then she gently crouched beside the girl, speaking softly. "Sweetheart, can I check your eyes for a moment?" Adrian frowned, puzzled by the sudden request. Mira took out a small flashlight from her apron pocket. The light shone gently across Lily's eyes. Her pupils reacted instantly. Mira froze, her heart pounding. Adrian leaned forward, his breath catching. The room seemed to shrink, the background noise fading into silence. The waitress looked up, whispering carefully, "Sir, she is responding to light." Adrian blinked, confused. His hand trembled slightly as he looked at his daughter. "Lily," he said softly, his voice cracking, "can you see me?" The girl's eyes moved, slowly, deliberately, and then she nodded. Gasps escaped from nearby tables. Mira stepped back, her face pale, yet filled with relief. Adrian's world began to tilt. Every belief, every memory, every whispered word of hopelessness suddenly shattered. The little girl reached out her small hand, touching his face gently. He could see tears forming in her once empty eyes. But before he could speak, Mira noticed something else, something strange, hidden beneath the surface of Lily's gaze. Something that did not belong. Something no one had seen before. Adrian followed Myra's frozen stare. And in that single, breathless second, everything in the room changed. The world around them blurred into a still frame. The clinking glasses, the laughter, the faint hum of a violin, all vanished. Adrian's chest tightened as if the air itself had thickened. He could hear only the sound of his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. Myra's hand trembled slightly as she lowered the flashlight. Her eyes remained locked on Lily's. There was something unsettling in that gaze. Not fear, not confusion, but recognition. Lily tilted her head slightly, her expression blank yet oddly aware. Adrian leaned forward, whispering her name again, barely audible. "Lily." Her lips parted, but no words came out. Instead, her small fingers reached for her teddy bear. She pulled it close to her chest, clutching it as though it were protecting her from something unseen. Mira glanced toward Adrian. Her voice was low, careful, almost afraid to disturb the fragile silence. "Sir," her eyes are reacting normally, but there's something strange about the reflection. Adrian blinked, confusion knitting his brow. "What do you mean?" Mira hesitated. The light from the chandelier caught Lily's eyes again, revealing a faint shimmer deep within, a shimmer that seemed almost mechanical. Not like a reflection of light, more like a response. "It is as if," Mira continued, "her eyes are responding to something else in the room." Adrian's pulse quickened. He looked around, at the people, the tables, the soft golden glow of the restaurant. Everything appeared normal. yet an invisible tension clung to the air. "Lily," he said again, trying to keep his tone steady, "what do you see?" The girl blinked slowly. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "Lights." Adrian froze. He leaned closer. "What kind of lights?" She pointed, her tiny hand trembling, toward the far wall of the restaurant. There, above the polished mirror, a faint pattern of colors pulsed like a reflection that should not exist. Mira turned her flashlight off, and the colors flickered faster. Adrian stood up, his chair scraping the floor, drawing glances from nearby tables. The restaurant manager approached nervously, but one sharp look from Adrian stopped him cold. Lily's eyes followed the strange glow, and as she moved, so did the colors, mirroring her every motion. It was as if something was watching her back. Adrian's mind spun in disbelief. She had been declared blind for 6 years. No doctor had offered hope. He had funded every possible treatment, every research program. Nothing had worked. And now, in a quiet restaurant, a waitress had undone everything he believed. Mira crouched again, gently brushing Lily's hair back from her face. "Sweetheart, how long have you been able to see the lights?" Lily hesitated, her small voice trembling. "They come when I dream." Adrian felt his stomach twist. Dreams. She used to wake in the middle of the night, crying, pointing at walls, saying she could see colors moving. He had dismissed it as imagination, a child way of understanding darkness. But now, it did not feel like imagination at all. Mira looked at him, her tone soft but firm. "Sir, I think you should take her for another scan. Something has changed. Maybe her vision was not completely gone." Adrian nodded, but his mind was far from calm. He knew every scan, every test. He had seen the reports himself. Her optic nerves had been damaged beyond repair. And yet, here she was, seeing something no one else could. The teddy bear slipped from Lily's arms, landing softly on the floor. A tiny metallic sound followed. Mira frowned, bending to pick it up. She noticed a small opening at the back of the bear's neck, as if something had been stitched inside. A glint of silver peeked through the soft fabric. "What is that?" she murmured. Adrian crouched beside her. The sound of his heartbeat roared in his ears as Mira carefully pulled at the loose seam. Inside was a small, oval-shaped locket, smooth, cold, and faintly glowing with the same light that shimmered in Lily's eyes. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Lily reached for the locket, her eyes wide. "That is mine," she said softly. Adrian's throat tightened. He had never seen it before. "Where did you get this, Lily?" She hesitated, looking down. "Mama gave it to me before she went away." Adrian felt a sting deep in his chest. His late wife had passed away the night Lily was born. There had been no chance for gifts, no farewells, no secrets exchanged. Myra's hand trembled slightly as she opened the locket. Inside was a small, delicate photo, a man holding a baby. Adrian recognized his own face instantly. But beneath the photo, faintly etched into the metal, was something else. A symbol, not a letter, not a design. Something like a pattern, pulsing faintly, in perfect rhythm with the glow in Lily's eyes. Mira stepped back, her breath quickening. Adrian stared at it, disbelief clouding every thought. The light inside the locket flickered once, then twice, then steadied. And Lily's pupils shifted, mirroring that same pulse. Adrian's voice was barely a whisper. "What is happening to you, my child?" Lily's voice quivered, but her words were steady. "Mama said she would help me see. She said the light would live inside me." Mira pressed a hand to her chest, her mind racing. This was not possible. No one could implant something like that. Not legally, not ethically. But there it was glowing faintly in front of them. Adrian felt the walls of reason crumble. He turned to Mira, his voice low and desperate. "Do you think she was part of some experiment?" Mira shook her head, whispering, "I do not know. But whatever this is, it is not just medical." Lily looked up at both of them, her expression oddly calm now. "The lights tell me things," she said softly. Adrian's heart dropped. "What things?" "They show me where people are sad," she replied. Her voice carried an eerie stillness, an innocence that only made the words more chilling. They glow when someone is lying. They blink when someone is afraid. Mira exchanged a glance with Adrian, neither daring to speak. Around them, the restaurant noise slowly returned, but nothing felt the same. Adrian's world had shifted forever. He stared at his daughter, the child he thought was blind, and felt a surge of awe and fear intertwine. The light in her eyes dimmed slightly, as if the truth had exhausted it. She leaned forward, resting her head on his chest. "I can see you now, Daddy," she whispered. Adrian's eyes burned with tears he had not allowed himself in years. He held her close, trembling. Mira stood silently, watching the impossible unfold before her. But as she turned her gaze toward the locket still resting in Adrian's hand, she noticed something new. The faint glow had begun to spread, lines of light tracing across the metal like veins coming alive. And for the first time, Mira realized that whatever had given Lily her sight was still active, and it was responding to something or someone in the room. The air thickened once more. The chandelier lights flickered. Adrian looked up sharply, every muscle tensing. Lily's eyes followed the same invisible pulse, her expression blank, entranced. And then, from somewhere behind them, a voice spoke softly. "I told her the light would find you." Adrian froze. The words sliced through the air like a whisper carried by wind, quiet yet sharp enough to still every heartbeat in the room. He turned slowly, his chest tightening, his pulse hammering against his ribs. The voice was calm, almost gentle, but carried a strange familiarity. Mira stepped closer to Lily protectively, her eyes darting through the dim light of the restaurant. The guests nearby had stopped talking, sensing something they could not explain, the kind of silence that trembles with unseen energy. From the far end of the room, a figure emerged from the shadows. A woman, slender and poised, with dark hair that shimmered like midnight silk beneath the chandeliers. Her face was pale, almost translucent, and her eyes glowed faintly, mirroring the same light inside Lily's. Adrian's breath caught in his throat. It was impossible. He had buried his wife 7 years ago. Every detail of that night had been seared into his memory. The rain, the hospital lights, the silence when they told him she would not return. And yet, there she was. Clara. His voice cracked like glass. The woman smiled faintly, her expression soft but distant, as if she stood halfway between life and memory. "Hello, Adrian." Myra's hand trembled. She could not understand what she was seeing. The way the woman's presence seemed both real and ethereal, like she was made of light and shadow. Adrian took a hesitant step forward, his eyes wide. How is this possible? Clara tilted her head gently, her gaze drifting toward Lily. "She can see because she carries part of me," she said softly. "The doctors told you she would never see, but I cannot accept that. I found a way to give her what I never had, a world of light." Her words wrapped around them like smoke, haunting and beautiful at once. Adrian shook his head in disbelief. "Clara, you're gone." There was no way. She smiled sadly. "Not gone. Not completely. When the accident happened, the research project I had worked on for years, the one you never believed in, it was not destroyed." Her eyes glowed brighter, just for a moment. The Lightwave interface, a way to translate neural impulses into visible perception. I was working on it to restore sight, but I used it differently. Myra's voice trembled. "You mean you integrated it into her?" Clara nodded. "When I realized I would not live, I left instructions. I asked the surgeon to save what remained of my neural data, the part of me that could see. They placed it within her optic system. My light became hers." Adrian's hands shook violently now. His mind was reeling, grief, awe, disbelief, all colliding like waves. "You turned our daughter into—" He could not finish the sentence. Clara's voice softened. "Into a bridge between two worlds, between what is seen and what is felt." Lily looked up, her voice small but steady. "Mommy." The woman smiled, tears glimmering in her luminous eyes. "Yes, my love, I am here." She knelt beside her daughter, her hand hovering close but not touching, a gesture filled with both love and distance. Mira felt her throat tighten. It was as if two realities had overlapped, sharing one fragile heartbeat. Adrian's voice dropped to a whisper. Why now? Why show yourself tonight? Clara's expression changed. Sorrow flickered across her face like a passing shadow. Because the light inside her has reached its limit. It is growing stronger and unstable. Myra's stomach sank. What do you mean by unstable? Clara turned toward her, her eyes glowing faintly once more. The connection between us is fading. If it breaks without guidance, it may harm her. The light must be released or transferred. Adrian's entire world began to collapse inward. He reached for Lily instinctively, pulling her close. No, you cannot take her away from me again. Clara shook her head slowly. I do not want to, but she is seeing too much now. Not just light, but emotion, truth, pain. The light has made her sensitive to everything. Mira looked at Lily, who now seemed to stare past them, her eyes wide, shimmering faintly with patterns of color. Daddy, Lily whispered, everyone here is shining. Adrian swallowed hard. What do you see, sweetheart? She looked around the restaurant slowly. Blue light for the sad people, red for the angry ones, yellow for the ones who are scared. She pointed toward Mira. You are green. You're trying to help. Myra's breath hitched. She had never felt so exposed, seen beyond her thoughts, her emotions reflected in color. Clara stepped closer, her voice filled with quiet urgency. She cannot carry this forever. The human mind is not built for such sight. Adrian's mind raced. What must we do? Clara looked at him with infinite tenderness. Let her close her eyes. Let her sleep. When she wakes, the light will fade, and she will see like everyone else. Not through me, but through herself. He hesitated. What if she forgets you? Claire smiled softly. She will not. A mother's light never truly leaves. Adrian's eyes filled with tears. He looked at Lily, his daughter, his miracle, his reminder of everything he had lost and everything he still had. Will it hurt her? He asked quietly. Clara shook her head. No, it will free her. Mira knelt beside them, her hand resting on the table for balance. Do we need to do something? Clara turned to her, gratitude in her gaze. Just keep her safe. Tell her stories. Let her remember that light can be gentle too. Lily's eyes began to flicker, the colors inside them swirling like galaxies collapsing into dawn. The restaurant lights dimmed without warning. A faint hum filled the air, subtle but powerful, as if the entire building was holding its breath. Clara reached out her hand. This time, the glow from her palm touched Lily's cheek. For a second, the entire room shimmered with warmth. Then everything went still. The chandeliers steadied. The glasses stopped vibrating, and Clara was gone. The locket on the table no longer glowed. Lily opened her eyes slowly. They were clear, bright, blue, and human. She blinked, looking around the restaurant in awe. Daddy, she whispered, I can see you. Adrian broke down, his composure dissolving in a rush of tears. He hugged her tightly, whispering her name over and over. Mira wiped her eyes quietly, a faint smile breaking through her shock. The other diners began to whisper again, unsure of what had just happened, but feeling the air lighten, as though something divine had passed among them. Outside, the night had softened, rain falling gently against the glass windows. Adrian stood, lifting Lily in his arms. Thank you, he said softly to Mira. She nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. She was never blind, sir. She just needed to see the truth. Adrian smiled faintly through his tears. Maybe we all did. He turned toward the door, stepping into the cool rain with his daughter held close. The city lights reflected in her eyes, now pure and calm. Mira remained at the table, staring at the locket one last time. For a brief moment, just before the light inside finally faded, she could swear she heard a voice, gentle, familiar, carried by the rhythm of the rain. Thank you for helping her find the light. And then it was gone. Mira exhaled slowly, her hand resting on her heart. The night moved on, but something had changed forever in the restaurant, in Adrian's heart, and in the quiet, shining eyes of a child who had once lived in darkness. The light was gone now, but in truth, it had only found a new way to stay. Morning sunlight spilled through the wide glass windows of Adrian's mansion, soft and golden, filling every corner with warmth. For the first time in years, the house felt alive. Laughter, light, unrestrained laughter, echoed down the marble hallways. Lily sat by the window, her teddy bear in her lap, sketching with colored pencils. She was drawing the restaurant, the lights, the people, the moment her world had changed. Adrian stood nearby, a cup of coffee trembling in his hands. He watched her with quiet awe, every breath still carrying traces of disbelief. Each time she looked at him, truly looked, he felt something inside him heal. Her eyes were no longer glowing, no longer mysterious. But when she smiled, he could still see a trace of Clara, gentle, warm, eternal. Mira arrived later that morning, holding a bouquet of lilies. Lily ran to her, giggling, her arms wrapping around Myra's waist. "You came," she said brightly. Mira knelt down, smiling. "Of course I did. I promised I would bring you something beautiful." She handed her the flowers. Lily sniffed them, then looked up. "They smell like sunshine." Adrian chuckled softly, his heart swelling at the sight. Mira turned to him. "How has she been?" He nodded. "Peaceful. Sleeping well. No more lights, no strange visions. Just normal." But there was something in his tone, a soft ache, a bittersweet note. Mira noticed. "You miss her." Adrian exhaled slowly. "Every day." He looked at the locket resting on the table beside Lily's crayons. It was no longer glowing, but he could never bring himself to put it away. It was all that remained of Clara, her gift, her love, her light. He had opened it once more after that night, just to be sure it was real. And inside, beneath the faint reflection of his own face, he thought he saw another, smiling faintly, as if watching over them. Lily called out, interrupting his thoughts. "Daddy, look." She held up her drawing, a simple picture of 3 figures holding hands under a sky filled with warm yellow light. He smiled, tears threatening to fall again. "That's beautiful, Lily." She grinned. "That's you and me and Mommy." Myra's eyes softened. "You remember her?" Lily nodded proudly. "She told me something before she left." Both adults exchanged a quick glance. Adrian knelt beside her. "What did she say, sweetheart?" Lily's voice became quiet, thoughtful. She said the light was never inside my eyes. It was always inside my heart. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Adrian closed his eyes, the words sinking deep, a message both haunting and healing. He placed his hand gently over her chest, feeling the steady rhythm beneath his palm. "Yes," he whispered, "it always was." Outside, the morning rain had stopped. The sky broke open into soft blues and golds, the air fresh and alive. Mira stood by the window, watching the sunlight touch the garden. Something about it felt different, as if the light itself had learned to be gentle. Adrian walked over to join her. "She would have loved this," he said softly. Mira smiled faintly. "She still does." He nodded. "Maybe you're right." They both turned to look at Lily again. She was humming quietly, her drawing nearly complete. The teddy bear sat beside her, the seam neatly stitched where the locket had once been hidden. Everything was ordinary now, wonderfully, beautifully ordinary. But in that ordinariness, there was a quiet miracle. A man who once lived behind walls of grief now smiled again. A waitress who once doubted her place in the world found her purpose in kindness. And a little girl who had once lived in darkness now saw everything, not just with her eyes, but with her heart. As sunlight spilled across the room, touching each of them, Adrian whispered a final prayer under his breath. "Thank you for the light that stayed." And outside, the world kept shining, soft, steady, and endless.